you'll find that most of the books that he writes really short and very practical, very clear, and they're just like guides. They are more of guides. Some of the books I've read, 5 a.m. Club, Why Should, Who Will Cry When You Die. Those books are very short and easy to remember. So this book still has the same kind of writing style. And we have a number of 100, I think it's 101 chapters. So we're going to begin with Primera. It's going to be really key takeaways from each chapter. And then feel free to comment in the chat room about different chapters, what stood out for you, anything that you can share while all the different panelists are sharing. So I'd like to invite Primera. Primera, you can start off by reviewing the first chapters, and then we can pick it from there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Claire, for this. I'm super excited that we have read 24 books in 24 months. That is a big deal. That means thank you so much for the consistency. Thank you so much for anything and everything and all the contributions you have received. The people who have consistently come for the sessions, for the reviews. We are really, really grateful and very honored. This was one interesting book, like Claire said. It requires a lot of just reading through the 100 chapters, but they are pretty easy and very self-explanatory. So we are going, because we have to go through 100 chapters, we're just going to go through and just explain to you like what I picked out of the book in terms of what is it that he's talking about. So it was really about the manifesto for the everyday hero within you. And I like it that he was speaking to you directly, like as a person, and not with very easy hands, like basically like have a reflection of who you are. So it's a manifesto for the everyday hero within you. There are so many stories he has put within about his own life, and that explain the different things that have been there in his life. And the most common theme throughout has been being able to visit your limits and being able to ensure that you can go beyond those limits for you as a person. Being able to understand that you shouldn't listen to the no's that people say. Those are their views of the world. What does that mean for you? Now, he explains being able to go beyond the ordinary. So to be ordinary people, we do ordinary things, to be extraordinary. And he explains his own life and how he started out and how he was rejected so many times. He first wrote his story, he sends it to the first editor, and the first editor, who was someone he really, really respected, sent him back with comments like, you'll never get it, you'll never get there, you're not a good writer. Like, what's this? It's like literally rubbish. But that feedback, basically, he took it and he made himself a better person. It was really mostly about the monk who sold his Ferrari and the characters therein, like who is going to really read this and who is going to, but he didn't give up. He said, this is my dream, I believe in it, and I'm going to go through with it. Personally, I found that that's not very easy. It's easier said than done. When you see someone who has actually done it and gone through it, and you're like, oh my goodness, okay, he has done it. But when it's you in your feet, sometimes we are fearful. We are fearful of going beyond those limits because sometimes you don't know what is on the other side. But the other side is quite, it's quite, what can we say? It's quite something when we get there, because sometimes you don't know, but when you get there, you find it's actually okay. Then he talks about it's okay not to be okay, which was also a very interesting topic. Sometimes we think that it's all right to be okay all the time, but we don't have to be okay all the time, and that's okay. As a person, sometimes we feel like the world is glossy, and he explains that you scroll down someone's timeline, they got a new job, they have a new home, they have a new car. For you, it's all glossy, and sometimes we think like life has to be joy all the time, and that's life. No, that's not always the way it is. Sometimes it's just okay not to be okay, and it's just another phase that we are going to go through as ourselves through our lives. Now, the other part was chapter 5, which was the gold miners paradox. Now, it was really about going back to where we were. So he gives a story about an old story about hiding. They hid our monument, which was made of pure gold, because they did not want, they were being invaded and they didn't want it stolen. So they hide it over layers and layers of gold, the layers of gold on soil. So they put so much soil on it. So years later, someone sees a little gold and says, oh, let me unwrap it. And he takes off all of it, all the soil, only for them to find a monument that was once hidden, has come to the top, and it's beautiful and and amazing. So he was basically telling us to go back and remember who we once were, and who were you, what were your dreams when you were younger. Go back to when you were 10, 12, 8, 6, even 6, when you were carefree and living. What are those dreams that you had? And that takes us back to taking an inner voyage. It's time spent. You have to take time alone. And in the book, a lot of it, you see him taking time out to write. He says he's been hiding somewhere for 2 weeks to be able to write. He's taking out time for himself to actually like find who he is. Number 6 was interesting. So it got its own page, and it was about the victim to hero leap. So sometimes we see ourselves as victims, where we don't end up being heroes in terms of what we do. So he talks about 5 ways in which we can actually change that, move from a victim to a hero in our lives. So the first 2, entertain people who think they can't. He actually goes on to say then he goes on to say that people who change the world and change leaders are people who use a language of hope. That means in the language we speak every day. I'm happy. I have a friend called Kathy who is on the call today. And I've been Kathy's friend for 20 years or so. Don't ask us how old we are, but that's how long we've been friends. But there is no conversation like we can ever have, all sit down, and we can sit down for hours, that has anything negative to it. It's always like, this is the issue. Then we always look at the beautiful side of how we can actually get out of it. So that has been my support system for me as a person. And I found it very, very, very helpful. Having people in your life who tell you can't do that. I have I have like gained a bit of weight over the last like 2 years. So I was trying to say, oh, I need to exercise, not maybe to just lose the weight, but to just be more healthy and happy. And I told someone one day, and they're like, but with your lifestyle, you think you're going to lose it? Such things. I'm like, okay, what are you talking about? Because I'm trying to change my life 360. Those are people you shadow from your life at all costs. Another one was making shift from making excuses to delivering results. Now, there is making excuses for your life, and every other day is okay, I'll start tomorrow, I'll do this today, or I'll do this later today. That kind of thing, he says that must end. We stay being a victim instead of leaping to being a hero of our own lives. Then the other one was living in the past, ruminating, in the other word for it, living in the past. We are victims. We live a fabulous life in our past. 10 years ago, life used to be beautiful. Things were cheaper. That's not the reality today. Today, bread is at almost 6,000 shillings. Yeah, in some places. It's never going, it may not go back to what it used to be at 3K or 2.5, but what's the shift we're going to have today in our lives? We're going to look at it positively and say, what can I do with what I have? The other one was shift from being busy to becoming productive. Have you ever felt like there are people who are busybodies? They're always up and down, like the whole day. And at the end of the day, you cannot quantify what that person did. So it's not about being busy. There are people who can actually, it's okay for someone to sit at their desk and finish all their work in like 4 hours, as much as you have your 8 hours. But it's about being productive, not staying there and looking like a busybody. Then the other one was the shift from taking from the world to giving to the world. Fish. We want. But one of the most important things is being able to give us gain. Let's be consistent in giving to the world. Yeah. And being able to serve everyone around us as a very important part of what we do in terms of being heroes in our lives. We stop being victims. We're helping people. I'm going to help Claire, or I'm going to help Kathy achieve her goals. What are your goals? What are your year and annual goals? How can I help? How can I be part of your life? It's not how can you help me? It's about how we really help others. And it's not something we should just say. It's something that should be in our actions on a constant. Now, the other part of the chapters, chapter 7, talks about my private journals being taken. So he lost his journals, all of them. Journals he taken time to write, like his private conversations we had, a lot of taking out his personality. So as you're taking that voyage, means you are looking at your character, your personality, and trying to say which areas in my life are completely weak. Where can I improve? So that's some of the things he had put there, and he got detail about that level of. So, but he says that writing, and he encourages us to really write the journals, that they literally saved his life. But as much as they were even stolen, he didn't mind. For him, he feels like for him, he's a work in progress. And if you read, you realize actually he's human and he actually makes mistakes. He's actually growing and getting better every day. So he says writing saved his life, writing the journals, and him losing the journals didn't deter him to continue to write. And he was like, you know what, if someone finds them, that's up to them. Let them read some of this and just know that you can actually be very, very open about yourself and about your life and still get to where you're going. Number 8 was instruction from heavyweight mentors. He talks about having mentors, and he talks about 2 mentors, one who was having conversations with him from time to time. And at the end of his life, like 2 months before he died, he took a flight and went to see him, and they had a conversation. And he asked him, what would you advise in terms of, would you advise me? And he said, always be kind, Robin. Oh, that's so important. Always be kind. Like treat every person with exceptional courtesy and extraordinary respect, like no matter what, like when you find others. The other third advice he received was serving others. Serve others no matter what. Don't think about yourself first, just give. So in this chapter, he talks about the importance of us having mentors in our lives and having heavyweight mentors, people who are going to come down on you and talk to you when you actually need that advice, and people can actually give you candid advice and be supportive of you. In chapter 9, he talks about the joy of being laughed at. And in this chapter, he talks about when we are unique and we have embodied our uniqueness first, we are bound to be different from the crowd, from the word go. We will be different, how we talk, how we dress, how we look at life. One of his mentors, the professor, he says like all his life, that guy he had money, he was getting a good salary, but he was driving a very simple car, an old car, literally. But that's who he was, you get? So when you are going through life, you will definitely be different. You'll be the person who is maybe a CEO, but you drive a simple car. You live in a good home, not maybe what people would expect. Maybe you live in a certain suburb, and people will look at you and say, why is that person different? He says that all history makers at some point were initially ridiculed before they actually got to where they needed to go. So we'll always be different, especially if you're trying to be a masterpiece somehow. Chapter 10, he talks about the Orson Welles memo. And he talks about it not being like our lives not being mostly about the money that we are making, but more about the character of the creator in our different parts of our lives. In chapter 11, he talks about nothing is perfect. You won't find anything that's absolutely perfect in life. Like no matter where we search or what we do, the author is like, nothing is really going to be perfect. Then he talks about the 400-year-old practice called kitsing. And he talks about it. It's basically a Japanese way where they put together broken pots. But when they put back the broken pots, they actually use pure gold to actually perfect. But how do you put ourselves together with that level of beauty? So we have a broken pot put together, but it has gold that it's so we will look at looking, but there's nothing like perfection. So it's about making do with what we have and actually making the best out of it. The other story he gives in chapter 12 is about the chestnut stellar doctrine. He finds a guy in the middle of the night at 12 a.m. and warming chestnuts, and he buys some from him, and then he stops and asks him for his story. He's like, I want to know your story. The guy says, I was a very rich man in my country where I came from, but I fell sick and I lost everything. But he had a very big smile on his face as he's selling the chestnut. It's like, okay. So basically, the guy said, you know what? I'm still alive, so I can still dream. That's the biggest lesson for me from that chapter, is being able to know that we may go through so much, like so much in our lives. It may be very heartbreaking in terms of relationships, children, parents, family, jobs. We've gone through a very hard 2 years of COVID, over 2 years of COVID. Different businesses have closed, lost jobs, all that. But so I can dream. We can still start from Texas to the IPOP principle for accelerated positivity. He talks about it's basically input positivity and you'll output positivity. Your ecosystem shapes your energy, and your surroundings influence your performance dramatically. There is no way we are going to undermine our ecosystem. Do you have a village that is supporting that ecosystem? Do you have a village that is actually making sure that you are living in a good way and you're able to thrive? Okay. True. Like I have given you an example of me and Cassie for the last 20 years. That is my village. anyone who is not inputting positivity, you can't be part of my life. Let's say there's a concept called benign neglect, because some people are family. Talk to them less. If I just talk to you twice a week, I just talking to you once a week, because I need to accelerate positivity in my life, and I need good energy around my life. That is the only way we can be productive. And it's not really about at home, also in our workplaces. We know when our workplaces become toxic, then we already have a problem. We don't know how to proceed in our own lives. So you have to, if you're going to grow great and be great, we need to be able to have a lot of positivity in our lives constantly. Then chapter 14 was quite interesting. The language we use to be able to speak about different things needs to be language which is right in terms of how we have pronounced it. So disloyal doubts had kidnapped trustworthy dreams. We need to be careful about that. Chapter 15 talks about J.K. Rowling, how he taught him about being restless. Now, J.K. Rowling, we've done her book before, and we've talked about her story before. She was a single mother, and she was writing, and she gave her book to very many people to read it, and they kept rejecting and said that it does not fit the audience she's trying, the target market she was trying to look for. At the end of the day, someone takes the book and actually publishes the book, and we know the story after that. It's a pure success. Now, so someone's opinion is just someone's opinion. Don't believe it if it doesn't fit your picture. You know yourself best. You know how much you are going to work. You're going to work on what you're doing. So fall 7 times, we are going to rise up 8. That was really that. The other one was guard good health like a pro athlete. We know when we are not healthy in our bodies, then we will pay a price for it. So if we work too hard and we don't rest, then we will reach a point of pure exhaustion. Same thing with our mindset. We need to be able to program greatness all the time. It's our way of making sure that we are healthy. And then he talks about a point called heart set. So he divides this chapter into four subsets, which is mindset, heart set, health set, and soul set. Soul set is basically being able to reduce the noise in your ego. If you did not, we read a book which is Road to Character. Make sure you read that book. It will help you with this soul set part. Then there is health set, which is your physicality, being able to exercise, eat healthy, be healthy in terms of, it's not about the number of kilos on the weighing scale, it's about health. Can I walk well? Am I healthy? What is it? My BMI is fine and right. Then heart set is about, he says we need to revisit the heart set a lot. Heart set is basically to help us free ourselves or suppress toxicity, fear, and anger and disappointment. Now, it accumulates as we go through our life, according to the book. So when I was 20, I had certain levels of anger, sadness that may have arisen in my teenagehood. In my 20s, it adds up. In 30s, 40s, and as we grow, 60s, 50s, it increases. So he says we need to stop and actually make sure that we are rethinking those things. And that is what one of the things he talks about in the journaling part. He would sit down and talk about what are the toxic things I'm feeling, what is the fear I'm feeling, the anger, the sadness that I have. So we need to think about those 4 parts: the mindset, the heart set, health set, and the soul set. And we have tried to address them in the different books that we are working on. And the biggest part of that chapter is the heart set. And for me, it's really spoke to me. Like in terms of stopping, I'm stopping a lot. I stop a lot to plan, to think about my day, to think about my life. But am I stopping to think about the suppressed toxic emotions I may have, the fear, the anger that has come from certain disappointments in my life? In chapter 17, he starts off with telling us how he eats well, he does a lot of exercise. When you look at his photo, you can actually tell he actually takes his time to take care of his physical part of his life. when he says, I want to take you through my life, I don't want you to become perfect. Sometimes I also eat a whole pizza and finish it while even walking, like from the from the pizza place. So it's he talks about in all this conversation we are having here, okay, take the path of moderation between excess and deprivation. So I'm not going to take carbs until next week Wednesday when I meet Kathy and we can have carbs. But I'm going to have that balance. Oh, I'm telling you my secret. Eh? Today. So it's just that balance. I'm going to protein by veggies, but it's not all the time. When I have to have a space when I can indulge in something nice that I want to eat. So let's avoid being an extremist in any dimensions of our lives. Let's find that perfect balance. It's okay sometimes. Yeah, it's okay to not be okay. Back to the other chapter. Then in chapter 18, he talks about the philosophy for mastering unexpected change. There are so many changes that happen in our lives. In the last 2 years and a half, we have experienced it and we have understood how discomfort is essentially what is going to take us to another level. Despite having all these COVID issues, people have started businesses that actually thrive. He talks about discomfortable disturbance being an essential part of evolution. For example, in a forest, we find that sometimes we have a fire. It takes out part of a forest, but the forest grows again anew. Same thing with our lives. Sometimes we are in certain places and certain things happen. People will tell you stories. You can tell me on the chat. Someone fired me. I started a business. It's thriving. Someone pushed me to the wall. I had to resign from that job, stay home for a couple of months. I think I had one story like that at G4G. And after a couple of months, she got a really, really nice job, like something that was beyond her dreams. So we need to be able to account for such things and not let them and not look at them as failures in our own lives. Like just look at the glass half full. What is it? What is in it for me? Number 19 was a nice reminder somewhere in the after reading 18 chapters of voyage, take that voyage and all was a nice reminder for me to be that I'm absolutely more than enough. We compare ourselves, we compare our spouses when it's back and then you're like, oh, I wish I had that one. Or we look at our children, we are happy with them until we see the next person's children and we wish they were our children, or the next person's car, or the next beautiful dress. Like each of us has value and we are so much more and we are matter so much and we're uniquely us. So to be able to celebrate our own specialness, appreciate our own goodness. Sometimes I can post something which is my own opinion, and at first I used to think, okay, that's my own opinion and how I feel. Does everyone agree with me? Until I reach a point, I'm like, no, that's me. That's my own special person. I am me. I have my own way in which I see life, and I'm happy with that. And I'm happy with who I am. But also the ability to accept people for who they are. We are not the same. I saw Joan on the call. I will love Joan for who Joan is. You know, I don't want to be like her. I'm happy to accommodate her in my life just the way she is. It also helps us because if other people can accommodate us, Claire can be able to accommodate me and who I am, then I'm able to accommodate her and not think too much how she's not like me. We don't have to love the same food. We don't have to love the same kind of colors, nothing, but you're more than enough. And the other one was the starter activation declaration. And he talks about, I think because of his book, The 5 a.m. Club, it's like a continuation of that. That's how this chapter felt. It's about basically being able to reprogram your conscience and yourself, basically your conscious and subconscious mind into certain way. And he gives the rest of the part is just the declaration itself. So you need to go to chapter 20 and read that declaration. He says you need to read it in the morning before you start your day and let it be part of your life. He says a couple of weeks, usually it takes 21 days to change a habit. Yeah, you will find yourself changing and and your subconscious and conscious mind. Now, chapter 21, he talks about the very good bearded man in the really cool baseball cap. And he talks about him in a lift in the Dubai airport, and he was actually scared at some point to just tell him that his cap looked good, because it reminded him of, it was a good brand, and reminded him of when he was younger. And he took a chance all the same, and he told the guy that his cap looked nice, and the guy was like, oh thanks. He actually gave it to him and said, you can have it. And for some moment he thought about maybe refusing it, and he was like, okay, let me just take the cap. And after that, he actually called him back and gave him a copy of his book 5 a.m. Club, which he carries around a few copies in his suitcase, just in case someone does something really nice for him and he gives out the book. He signed the book and gave it to him. But he said those moments of kindness that we have with total strangers, like you can find someone, just tell them, oh, you look good, you have a nice dress, you have nice shoes, being able to give those compliments and being able to accept those compliments for each one of us, even when you're not sure what might happen. Chapter 22, he talks about train with stronger teachers. He talks about being in a spin class, and the first day the lady who was a trainer was so fast, she was so cool. He's like, he couldn't keep up, like he almost quit, you know. And he kept pushing himself. He has to go back, and do this. So he says we are all humans, and we are totally designed to be able to adapt, flourish, and advance. So what have you put our mind to finishing that master's degree? Primera, you're talking to yourself, and doing those tasks that we have to be able to complete. Is that exercise you've committed to starting? Is that task at work you have committed to starting or completing? We are astounding creatures. Just remember that we are built to adapt, to flourish, and to be able to advance in everything we do. The other one was chapter 23, which was a red flag is a red flag. Then he talks about people around us being damaged, yeah, through traumatic experiences they might have had in their lives, and being able to identify them in our lives. And like we said earlier, we need positivity, input positivity and output positivity, being able to see those things and accept that we are actually, those people cannot be part of our lives because of what we're trying to achieve. Then chapter 4 is the shortest chapter in the history of creativity. So he talks about us handcrafting that tour de force. That journey of ours is not going to be easy. It's not going to be an easy journey, but being able to fix ourselves and having those goals set and saying that we have to find and we have to do our very best towards that journey. Thank you. How about you, Claire?
Thank you, Primera. Wow, that was a marathon of wisdom, of nuggets. Yeah, oh my goodness, you can't even take notes because there's so much. Everything has a lot of richness. So thank you, Primera. Thank you, Kathy, for keeping the chat active. From my laptop, I can't easily scroll down, but thank you, Primera, for all those nuggets. You've started us off well. Some of the things that, okay, not to summarize, but just a few highlights for me from her presentation is that everything, we make decisions every day. We make decisions every day, and we're actually pilots of our own plane. We decide how to react to issues every single day. We decide to keep what kind of attitude we carry through life, and this can be seen in all the chapters. So thank you, Primera. The next person to present will be Winnie. Winnie is going to take us through the next chapters as she gets ready. Are there any questions If you have something to say, just raise up your hand or type it in the chat. Winnie, you're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Claire. I put on my video temporarily. I'm in a vehicle to places, but I'll do my part. So allow me to switch off my video and then to share with you what I have today. So the book, Everyday Hero Manifesto, for me, what it has is lots of snippets on how to be a hero. So I'm handling sections 25 to 49, and everybody pick your notes. I'll do one-liners, but they are great one-liners. So in section 25, he talks about the rule bender's hypothesis. In this section, Robin encourages us to bend the rules. Don't be stuck in logic. Many times, everybody tells you this is how things are supposed to be done. This is the process that you're supposed to follow. But Robin encourages us to focus on the what. Focus on what you need to do. It's not so much about how it will be done. As long as you know what to do, the how will show itself. He also encourages us not to obsess about perfection. Because if you follow so much the process, how will it be done? That stifles your creativity. So in the Bender's rule, it's about focusing on the what and then allowing your creativity to flow. Next section, he discusses having bravery like Swifty. In this section, he discusses about a man called Swifty. Now, Swifty met Sinatra in a restaurant. And the famous Sinatra, I think a famous singer, most of you, if you're my age, you should have heard about him. So Swifty approaches Sinatra. Of course, he's famous, and Swifty is an agent. So he goes straight to Sinatra and says, can I have a word with you? And of course, this guy being the professional, he feels, who are you to approach me? But Swifty is brave enough to say, I would really want to have a word with you. So Sinatra was also shocked by this guy's kind of bravery that eventually he gave in. So he says, in a moment, I'll be with you. And then Swifty goes back to the table, and 30 minutes later, Sinatra is at his table. But because of the level of bravery that Swifty showed, Sinatra was able to sign up this guy as an agent of his. So what we learn from this is the boldness, the bravery, the willingness to be confident and to approach places where we are not normally able to approach. But Robin is encouraging us that as heroes, we need to have this kind of bravery. Next section, he talks about a teacher called Sharma. I think we have had many people who talk about their stories of success. But those stories of success, the background is always about some calamity and some hard times. And Robin is telling us to embrace suffering and trauma as these are times of great lessons. So he says, trauma happens in your favor, never for your failure. So he encourages us, use trauma to heal and excel. I think even in many of our speakers, we have had sometimes their stories of suffering or their downsides, but through these downsides, a lot of excellence is achieved in the end. So we are encouraged to learn from trauma, to use suffering as a school. Let suffering, trauma be a teacher that leads us to excellence. The next principle Robin talks about is the people builders mantra. Here he encourages us to be everyday heroes. He says being an everyday hero begins with having a conversation with yourself. Who do you wish to be? What do you promise to do for the world? And then he quotes Maya Angelou, who says, people may forget what you say and people may forget what you do, but no one will ever forget how you made them feel. So build people up, never tear others down. So in being a people builders mantra, I mean, yes, this people builders mantra, as an everyday hero, let us practice to be people that build others up. I think this is what we should never forget, that people will never forget how you make them feel. So as we aspire to be heroes, this is one thing we should always keep in our minds. Section 29, Robin discusses the 7 threats to being world class. And here he says that the aim of mastery is not reaching legendary, but sustaining legendary. What does that mean? It means that you don't reach legendary and that's where it ends. Because if you think that is the end, then the next thing is that you're going to fall down. So the most important thing is to sustain that aspect of legendary. So he says that the main goal of a genuine everyday hero is to maintain and improve as the days unfold. So in this section, he gives us the threats to world class. For example, talent erosion. Talent erosion happens when you think you've got it all and you stop improving yourself. Energetic diversion. Energetic diversion happens when you engage in small things, worries, fights, and you don't use your energy to do the things that matter. Another thing there about the threats to being world class is success-fed hubris. He explains success-fed hubris as excessive pride and exaggerated confidence. When you feel I've arrived, you know, that arrivalism is what he calls the success-fed hubris. So do not feel like you've arrived, having that aura of I've got it all. So always be willing to learn. Then reaching the goal of enough, that this is enough. That is another threat to being world class. You always have to be looking for solutions to new problems. What you've done is never enough. Just keep looking for solutions to new problems as you aspire for world class. Then reputation deterioration is another threat to world class. He says reputation is one of your foremost assets. So as we aspire to be heroes, let's work hard to preserve our reputation. That is our foremost asset. And then the last threat he talks about being world class is human mortality. He says we should recognize that we shall all die. But even if we will die, there are things we can do that can keep us alive. So mortality is a threat that we need to keep alive by exercising, meditation, intermittent fasting. These are some of the examples, at least he, as Robin, uses. Okay, so that was section 29 on the threats to being world class. I hope you have noted those. And then the next section, he says, expect ungrateful. What is to expect ungrateful? He says that when you do good, some people will not appreciate what you do. Yeah? But the most important thing for you as an everyday hero is just stay true to your moral instincts. Despite people not appreciating, do good anyway. So take note of that. Expect ungrateful, but do good anyhow. The next section, he talks about the time he was left alone at the top of the mountain. That's a big story about when he went skiing at the top of the mountain with people who were experts and he was an amateur. But cutting the long story short about what happened when he was left up the mountain, eventually he managed to come down, and he says he looked foolish, but through that process, he grew in wisdom, toughness, and acumen. So he says, as humans, we become stronger when we venture into the tough. So in that time when he went up the mountain with his colleagues, he was the amateur in that sport, but he did go for it anyway. But he came out tougher, wiser, and stronger. The point he's making there is that we should be willing to venture into tough things. Number 32, he talks about peak productivity strategies. In that book, he outlines various peak productive strategies. For example, managing cognitive bandwidth. What is that? You just have a certain amount of ability to be present. So avoid spending time in digital escapism, worrying, crisis, tragedy. If you focus on those things, they are reducing your bandwidth, which you have to do great things. So we just have a limited slot. So if worry and tragedy and those things take up your time, you have little bandwidth left for productivity. So to conserve that bandwidth, cognitive bandwidth, spare your time for the things that make you productive. Another strategy he talks about is managing attention residue. Everything you do causes a creative, takes up some of your attention. So to avoid fragmented attention disorder, you need to manage your attention. What do you pay attention to? That is a peak productivity strategy. Another strategy he highlights is scheduling time for renewal. Yeah, all of us will get exhausted at some time. You need to schedule time for rest, time for refueling. That is a strategy for peak productivity. In the same section, he gives the peak productivity strategies pyramid. For that, I'll encourage you to go to that pyramid and look at section 32 where he highlights those things. Section 33, he says, join the Hope Brigade. In times of misfortune, recall your acts of bravery. So those times when you were brave will be your sources of hope. So keep hope alive is how I would summarize that. Look back on times you have been brave and have the hope during tough times. That is joining the Hope Brigade. In section 34, he talks about 40 things he wishes he had known before 40. Now, for my friends who are 40 already, it's not too late, but those of you who are not yet 40, you can refer to Robin's book, to Robin's examples, and find out those things that you can take advantage of. A few things that I highlighted from Robin, things he wishes he knew before he was 40. For example, he says he wishes he knew that walking in the woods would bring him happiness. He wishes he knew that getting super fit would multiply his creativity. He wishes he knew that the choice of a relationship partner was a main source of either your success or failure. He wishes he knew that putting people you put down is, that people putting you down is a sign of your increasing success. That when other people are putting you down, it actually means that you're becoming successful. So those who are jealous try to put you down. Then he says he wishes he knew that being scared just means that you're about to grow. So anything that scares you is a symbol of your time of growth. Okay, so there are so many lessons there. I would encourage you to read that section. And in section 35, he discusses the confidence-making technique. The confidence-making technique is using adversity, using tough times as your fuel to achieve the impossible. So when times are tough, I think we are going through some tough times at the moment, yeah? These are the times that we can use to build our confidence, to grow our stamina in whichever ways. He says it's easier to act yourself into a new way of thinking than to think yourself into a new way of acting. So the smallest action is always better than the noblest of intentions. So take action, be brave, take action. In section 36, it says 40 copies of a single book. And this is the message for us as the book club members. In that section, he just says how he keeps buying many books of any book that he reads. And he gives those books to his family members, to his friends, yeah? And the note to take away is that all it takes is just one right book that could transform your entire life. But this is interesting, what he says, that some books are to be read in parts, other books are to be read, but not so curiously, and some few books are to be read wholly and with diligence and attention. So I think one of those to be read with diligence and attention is this Everyday Hero Manifesto. But we are already reading and we are already in the book club. So I think we are on the right path. In section 37, he discusses the meaning of disgrace. Disgrace for the soul is to give up when the body is still going strong. Laziness, apathy, and surrender are the parents of disgrace. So Robin defines disgrace as giving up. So don't give up, my friends. In section 38, section 38 is a basic motto for stunning prosperity. What is the motto? The motto is, just because you can't see a solution doesn't mean that a solution does not exist. So let's take that as our motto for prosperity. When you can't see the solution, it doesn't mean that there is no solution. So he gives an example of how a lotus flower blossoms in a swamp. This flower is in a swamp, but it can blossom. So maybe you can be that flower that blossoms in a swamp. Robin says, stay positive, resilient, and agile, no matter what comes up. That's how we win. So take note, we are reading the book every day, or rather, we are summarizing the book Everyday Hero Manifesto. So how to win is to stay positive and resilient no matter what comes up. In section 39, he discusses hugging the monster. The monster is followed by a story of dogs. Dogs were approaching and he just kept going towards the dogs. His other friends who, it's not about Robin himself, but it's a story. So the other people ran away from the dogs and this monk kept going towards the dogs. And guess what happens? As he kept going towards the dogs, they kept coming. And as they kept coming, he also kept going towards the dogs. And eventually, because the dogs saw he kept coming, they just turned and went back. So he's encouraging us to hug the monster, to face the challenges, face our challenges head on. In section 40, he discusses the 4-figure dessert rule. So in this story of desserts, a customer came into a restaurant and wanted a dessert. He says, when he came to that restaurant, that dessert was not available. So he tells them, my friends, I've come all this way, and what I come for here is that dessert. So I must get that dessert by all means. Yeah? So what did the restaurant do? They got a helicopter and flew to find the customer's dessert. He was a very rich, prominent fella, and he's saying, I want that dessert. So they got a helicopter, got the dessert, and charged the customer 2,005 euros for that dessert. Why? Because the dessert cost 5 euros and it cost 2,000 euros to get the dessert, but he was willing to pay. So what is the lesson? Astonish your customers, deliver on expectations. So it's about meeting expectations irrespective of what it costs, because what they want is that you deliver. Now, section 41 is about not being a sloth. There is a whole story about a sloth, but a sloth is an animal that moves very, very slowly. The message there is don't be a sloth. In section 42, he talks about Ben Franklin's 13 virtue habit installer. I would encourage you to go and read Ben Franklin's 13 habits installer. If you want me to go quickly through it, I'm cognizant of time, but it has things like being careful about what you eat, silence, avoiding trivial conversations, order, practicing order in your spaces. Do not promise yourself do what you promise yourself without fail. So it's a whole lot about this habit installer by Ben Franklin. You can refer to it. In section 43, he discusses the peacock's complaint. What was the peacock's complaint? The peacock was complaining to this goddess, the goddess Judo. And the peacock's complaint was that the nightingale has a beautiful voice, and the peacock was complaining that its voice was not as beautiful. So this goddess Judo told the peacock, the peacock's blessing is beauty, and all living creatures are given their own unique talents. What's the message? Let each of us in our own right not look at the nightingale, complain, Primera is so gifted in this, or Catherine has this beautiful smile. And for me, what I admire, for example, about her, Claire, her resilience, how she keeps this book club going and being present for every review, and I cannot make it sometimes. But the message from Robin is that each of you have your own unique talents. So the peacock's blessing is beauty, the nightingale's talent is singing. So each of you have your own talents. Then in section 44, he discusses the most costly conflict. It's about a man who was fighting in court about a case. It took 2 years, but guess what? After 2 years, he won the case, but he had gotten a stroke out of all that effort. So he says, you need to sort what conflicts you get involved in and what conflicts you avoid, really, yeah? That was such a costly conflict. Then section 45 is about killing your darlings. He's sharing about the process he goes through to write a book. He says, for example, in writing this book, a lot of what he wanted to write, he left out. And what is he telling us as everyday heroes? he says, doing masterwork is in many ways about what you have guts to live out and what you allow to stay in. It takes tremendous acumen to know what to include and what is essential. For example, if you're writing a report, many of you maybe have gone through this. It takes a lot of acumen to know, should I write that? Should I leave that? Yeah. So the section is about killing your darlings. There are things that you may want to deliver, but in order to produce a masterpiece, they may be irrelevant. So learn to kill your darlings. In section 46, he talks about avoiding the third reward. When you help, help because the reward is already in the helping. But when you help with the expectation of being highly appreciated, that is already a third reward. So just avoid the third reward. Section 47, healing your once wide open hearts makes you a great master. Our hearts all right. Our society suggests that we open our hearts and exhibit our emotions, and that exhibiting our emotions is a sign of weakness. Yeah, that's what society thinks. But he says, open up your heart. Yeah, unexpressed emotions will never die. They are buried alive and will come forth later in uglier ways. So open up your emotions, open up your hearts, feel what you want to feel, and open up your heart. He gives also a tool about awareness, feeling, releasing, and then ascending. It's a process of releasing and reaching great heights. Section 48 is about what he learned from Leonardo's private notebooks. I encourage you to read it. And finally, section 49 is if you won't win if you don't even try attitudes. Allow me to stop here and pass on to the next person as it's already 4:15. Thank you, and over to you, Claire.
Thank you so much, Winnie. Thank you for for taking us through this. I see you on the road, but thank you so much. Some of the lessons that you, highlights. I would encourage everyone to read the 40 things he wishes he knew before 40. That list is amazing. It's very eye-opening. So after the review, you all have a copy of the book. Please go and read these things. Many times in Girls for Girls, we say that the things we are learning after 40, we wish we had learned in our 20s. We would have avoided many, many mistakes. So it's a very insightful list. And then another one is to refuel. Just like these times of costly fuel, you find that sometimes the light is red and you say, I will reach, I will reach where I'm going. And then you find that, oh my God, just on the way, yeah, the fuel has run out. So many times we think that we have enough reserve to keep going. But in this book, in the chapters that she has read, we need to refuel. We need to refuel through silence, through reading, through relaxing, through spending time with family. There are a number of details that are in those chapters that she has shared. Thank you, Winnie. And we're going to the second last group chapters that Kathy, happy Kathy, she's going to take us through those those chapters. Kathy, you're welcome.
Thank you, Claire. Thank you, Primera. Thank you, Winnie. Thank you, Winnie Manangi, for being on the road and joining in the review. That is resilience. And that is one of the things that heroes do. They get out of their comfort zones and do the things that they want to do. Claire, are you going to help me project the presentation?
Maybe Primera. I don't have a copy.
Okay.
Hi,
All right,
Kathy.
it's okay. Hi, Prim.
You're able to project?
No, I didn't download it.
You don't need to.
Okay. All right, so I'll swiftly go through chapters
Did I
50
project for
to,
you?
yes, you
Did I
can, but it's also okay.
All right.
Okay.
Then you can continue.
Yes, so I'll swiftly go through chapters 50 to 74. This book is amazing. Robin Sharma writes for the ordinary person, really. His sentences are easy to understand and they're easy to follow, they're easy to implement. So moving on, chapter 50, the main lesson from chapter 50 is do not confuse mileage for mastery and time invested with skill optimized. Many times we stay at jobs doing the same thing from January to December and expect that things are going to change. We keep to the JD, never look out for opportunities, and years pass. And that is mileage. It does not mean you become a master at what you're doing. No. Instead, if you're intentional and deliberate, rather than being random and accidental, for instance, when a report is asked for, that is when you start writing it out, or where there's a presentation, that is when you start crafting one. But he says it's intentionality and being deliberate that sets us apart. Chapter 51, do not allow the shadows of your ability to defeat positivity and borrow authority and advance spirituality. And what does it mean? Because you've achieved so much, you're now at top of the Africa list, you're now top of the world list of being the best at, let me use my example, best engineer. And then you get into a mode of, oh, okay, I can step on everyone. I want this. You've seen many times when you get into a place and you're told to step aside because maybe a member of parliament is passing by, or someone in the bank, you've been in the bank queue for over 3 hours, and then someone, VVIP, comes in and you're told to step aside. But it's encouraging us that because we are human and we live in an ever-changing world, that we should not allow that we've achieved to overshadow our humanity. And then chapter 52, the main lesson there is better awareness breeds the better choices that deliver better results. And what are we talking about here? That is why we're encouraging reading. The more you read, the more you learn. And the more you learn, the better decisions you make. And when you make better decisions, the outcomes are always much, much better. And so we're encouraging you to implement those 3 things: awareness, and then when you're aware, you make better choices. And when you make better choices, you deliver better results. Please hang in there in the book club, stay on course, read the books that are recommended. People share quotes, people do a lot of share a lot of knowledge on these G4G platforms. Please follow, learn, and you know, even their TED Talks, their podcasts, you can Google anything these days. Just always know that the person that's better informed makes better decisions. And when you make a better decision, the outcome is always much, much better. Chapter 53 is really about dealing with grief. But he talks about a different, I think about 9 or 10 actions that you can do, or you can refer to in these moments of grief. Know that this too shall pass. I know many times when you're in that situation, you cannot imagine. You cannot imagine that there's going to be a time when you feel like fresh air is passing by. You feel stuffed, you feel that no one understands what you're going through. But he assures us that this too shall pass. And every seemingly terrible situation inevitably ends well. And here I want to give an example of colleagues that were laid off while we were in an outsourced firm. Every year we used to sign on contracts, but now as a way of managing numbers, At the end of the year, when you'd be signing a contract, you'd assume that everyone else has been called to sign the contract, but many of them were dropped along the way. But it's amazing that out of this, people have moved on to greater spaces in their careers. Some of them who did not know that they would thrive in business are thriving in business. So know that it's a fact that every terrible situation always has a silver lining. And if it helps you grow, it's not a problem, but a reward. That is something to remember when you're going through a tough situation. Then adversity shows up to test how much we desire our dreams. When you listen to so many of these stories from business magnates around the world, you get that there's always that golden line in all their stories. If you notice that every time they fell down, they always got good ideas or better ideas to build their businesses up, and then they'll end up being better. What does that mean? That if you have that dream, if you're working towards a certain goal and adversity shows up, it's a test. If you're truly in pursuit of the things that you desire, you will stay on course and you will achieve those things. Chaos carries a lot of opportunities. Even when we're in this situation of fuel, people are creating a lot of things. Okay, if we cannot deliver using cars, how about we try borders that consume less? So there is always an opportunity in a difficult situation. Then we move on to, you've had so many stories about, I don't know, sometimes I even ask myself, should all the heroes have to go through hard times to become who they are to the world? And it seems like, yes, many times when you go through a difficult situation, there is that spark in you that is resurrected, that if it had been buried somewhere, if you did not know who you were, this situation sometimes brings out the best in us. When you look at the stories of Malala, she was in a very nice village, you know, girls and boys used to go to school, and then these people come, take over the place, and she has become a voice for the helpless. She has become a hero. When you look at Mandela, Robin gives an example of Mandela. He became a hero because of that Robin prison experience. And so know that in this situation of chaos, of grief, you may come out to be a hero. Life always has your back. You will never, ever. For as long as that situation has not killed you, you know that life has your back, and you are most likely going to get back on track, and you'll achieve the things that you are meant to achieve. And then he sums it all up by saying that don't take it so seriously. Life is too short. Life is too short. Don't take everything too seriously. It will be okay in the end. For as long as you have breath in your lungs and you have life, it will be okay. And if it's not okay, it's not the end. Chapter 54 ushers us into music. How he talks about, I think he writes well when he listens to this country music. Country music always has those stories. He gives an example of someone taking whiskey, has been, through a heartbreak and what. But the point there is that sometimes, many times when we listen to these songs, if you listen to Beethoven, if you listen to the classical kind of music, there is a mood it puts you in. And if you are a bit stressed, you relax. So, and then for some people, they listen to the words and they pick a lesson. Many of the songs have a lot of lessons. There are some songs that are sung by African musicians that, injustices, and that's the way they project their message. So the right kind of music can electrify your innovation. So pay attention as you listen to music. Then chapter 55, it reminds us of the power of positivity, and the fullest expression of humanity. He tells that story. It's not that when we go through difficult times or when we've been through injustices, it's not that everyone has turned their blind eye on you. Many times you go through these situations, and that's the time when you actually realize that, oh my goodness, people are actually people. If you go through a tragedy, the people who come to help you, they may not have the resources to match what you're going through. They may not, but just them being there will just remind you of humanity, of positivity, possibility, even that in times when you cannot see anything good out of the situation. Humanity usually breaks forth in those situations. Chapter 56 reminds us to fill our minds with great dreams so that there is no room for petty concerns. And I'll remind us here on the group, if you do not have a place where you write down your dreams, where you draw your dreams, contact Claire for that vision board. Learn how to fill your mind with big dreams. Now, when you fill your mind with big dreams, with optimism, with aspirations, you will not think of petty things like, oh my goodness, so the bosses were given new cars, and what about us who do the work? The government has forgotten about us. But even as the government, if you think the government has forgotten about you, why is it that your neighbor is thriving? Even in a tough situation, your neighbor is getting up early and going to work. Why is it that there are those people whose businesses are now listed and they're still moving forward, even when the Russian war has affected so much? Fill your mind with big dreams. I guarantee you, petty things will not matter to you. You will move forward. Again, I emphasize, if you do not have a way of filling your mind with these big dreams, if you haven't attended any of the goal setting sessions, if you do not have access to the vision board, please contact Claire, Primera. They have affirmations, things that can remind us of the things that we want to achieve, even in the chaos that is around us. We shall not think of pettiness or self-pity as we go through the situations around us. And then he also emphasizes the fact that it's okay to, as you're dreaming big and etc., many times you falter because, it's just human nature to falter, and you start feeling a bit down. You look around, there's no money, fuel is increasing, children have to go to school, you probably lost your job, and many times there are all these things that could affect even our big thinking. He says, try to implement silence, solitude, and stillness, because in that state, there is always a whisper, a gentle whisper. And even just dulling out all the noise can remind us of the things that we are pursuing, the things that we're aspiring to be. Just implementing that habit of solitude, stillness, silence. Even in your home, you can get that moment, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, where it's absolute silence. It will definitely remind you of the things that you're pursuing, even in this situation. Gratitude. I'm a happiness coach, and I always emphasize gratitude. Even when things are as gray as they may seem, there is always something to be grateful for. There is always just the fact that you are alive today. Just that is indeed a blessing. How about we learn to look out for those things that we are probably taking for granted and filling our minds with the pettiness that is surrounding us. Become a problem solver. I've heard of a lady, she's called Paula. I don't know if Food Network still broadcasts her food. She had a food show, and she's in the countryside, but there was a time in her life before she became this executive chef where she had nothing. She had two kids, and they were going to starve to death. She had no job. She had nowhere to get money from, but she knew how to cook. That was all she had. That she don't have a, this university degree or anything, but she knew how to cook. So become a problem solver. What can you do in your situation that can lift you out of it? And many times when it lifts you out of it, it not only makes you better, it makes your people better. It makes your society better. So always become a problem solver as opposed to a self-pitied person. Chapter 57, feel through the pain. Just like Winnie said, it is, you need to go through the entire motion of these, the things that happen to us. Do not ignore those things. Feel through the pain so that those wounds heal. So that at no point in the future would you, when you're triggered, when something triggers that pain, many times we get depressed. Remember the book we read, Lisa Nichols' book, and it was a trigger. She had been molested as a child, never dealt with it, probably had no support system to even talk to or to tell. She was a child and she had been molested by a relative. And so many years later, when that name was said, she became so, she freaked out. She could not even understand herself. And so we need to feel through the pain. Do not repress those emotions. You have to deal with them so that in your subconscious, it's dealt with. There is nothing that will trigger it to come to life again. Once it's dealt with, it's dealt with. And you'll come to that point when you know that it's time to move. When you go through a heartbreak, there comes a time that you know that I've stayed at this mountain for so long, time to move on. And so we need to listen to our bodies, to our feelings. We will know that it's time to move on. And so we need to learn how to deal with the things as they happen so that they're not kept in our subconscious. They have a nasty way of showing up if they're not dealt with. Chapter 58, what do we learn? We learn that we need to enjoy enchanting experiences and learn more about ourselves. There is no better time to stop and adventure and experience life in its fullness than now. Is there something you want to do? Many times when people ask me what's the craziest thing you've done, I get feedback of, I think Kathy has only maybe driven on the expressway. Those are things that she can do. And when I tell them that I've actually done bungee jumping, people get so shocked. But it's something I wanted to do. I wanted to know how it feels like to be, such. It's so scary. I wanted to know, how does it feel for those 13 seconds you're jumping from the top to the bottom, and I did it, and that was it. I did it. I felt it. That adventure ended. But guess what? Then I heard about that crazy leap of faith in Dubai. I went for it. But now after that one, I said adventures, that is done, because you go through when you need to you go over a slide at almost 90 degrees, and then when you reach the bottom, there is water. You pass through a glass tube. You're practically swimming, but it's at a very high speed. Now there are creatures swimming because it's a tight glass tube, but there are sharks. You see all those weird undersea animals, creatures swimming by as you're going through that tube. By the time you arrive at the other end, you have had enough of adventure. So for me, I say, please have adventure. It's exciting. And once you've done it, you go on to the next adventure, and that is life. And there's no better time to enjoy life than now. We know how it feels like to be locked up. The 2 years we're in lockdown, and now we've been freed. What a better time than now to do the things we wanted to do. That is life. Chapter 59. It's they're about 13 13, I don't know if it's manifestos. I don't know how to describe them, but there are 13, and I would advise all of us to read them. Just give me a minute. Let me get what they are. Okay, so there are 13, see the 13 hidden traits of the billionaires Robin has advised. I'm just going to quickly run through them. Self-faith, that you have this idea and your neighbors, even your own relatives may say it will not work, but you have faith that it will work, go ahead. Number 2, vision. I emphasize visualization. And that is why we are really advocating for vision boards, because when you look at these things every day, they sink down into your brain. And the brain has no way to differentiate between memory and what has not happened. And because of that, it is scientifically backed that the brain cannot differentiate the two. And because of that, you actually work towards the things you're seeing, because in the brain, it's like things have happened before. Now, when things have happened before, you have the audacity to do them. Those are the messages the brain keeps sending to you, to the front of the mind, that you have the audacity to do these things. So I really advocate for visualization. That is number 2. Number 3, they have a terrific thirst for rebellion. What does this mean? It means that even when against all odds, for them, they must move forward. For them, they must move forward. They will tell you that that business will not work. People will tell you that taxation is crazy, but you still want to go ahead. Go ahead. That is what the billionaires do. They do not care about the critics. Critics will tell them that, this one will not work. Like what they told the lady, J.K. Rowling, that her book, it will never sell. But she still went ahead, and look at where she is right now. They are consistent in their pursuit of what they want to do. It is not a 1-2 day thing, but they continuously improve, and they want to achieve what it is that they want to achieve. Enormously consistent. So consistency is key. They have a high level for winning. They don't just want to do the business, or they do not want just to get into the career. No, they have a winning attitude. They do not entertain mediocrity. They want to be the best. They resist instant pleasure. In one of the chapters, he talks about that syndrome of when you've achieved and then you suddenly stop working towards being better because you've already achieved that you wanted to achieve. But he says, resist that temptation. Just because you've made $5 profit does not mean that you go on and expand your life, your lifestyle to fill up the $5. No, they have goals written down and they are willing to forego certain things until they achieve what they want to achieve. And that also brings us to the point of making so much money. Even when you change a career, when you change a job, and you've been earning 1 million shillings, then this new job is going to give you 2 million shillings. What he's telling us is that before you move into a house that's now going to take half of that rent, continue working. Continue working until you get to a point when you are so comfortable that you can actually change houses from one of 250,000 to 500,000. But what happens is human nature convinces us that, oh, you now have 2 million, you need to move away from a house of 250 to that of 700. Now, when you move into a house of 700, you're already eating up 700,000 of that 2 million. So resist instant pleasure, because that will keep you away from the trap of getting into debt as you work towards your dreams. Skill, they have a skill at multiplying wealth. What is it that can multiply what you already have? What is it that you can do? What is it that you can learn and implement that will give you more money? They refuse to be around negative people. Primera emphasized that aspect. Negative energy is very bad for prosperity. The earlier we deal with them and let go of them, they are better for us, for our dreams and for our aspirations. They have a sense of urgency over accomplishment. What does this mean? They have to do that thing now. They do not wait for that refining process that sometimes gets us late to the party. They have a sense of urgency that this thing must work now. We are going live now, today. Whether a few things are missing, we are going now, and then we shall keep refining along the way and get it perfect. They are thoughtful and deliberate, where they, people say that business people are gifted. Yes, they are gifted, but it's not 100% about their giftedness. It's more of how thoughtful and deliberate they are when they are making these moves. Then number 13, they prepare, they test, and they train. They prepare, test, and train. So these huge businesses that we see thriving over years, over centuries, it is not accidental. It is not that the owners were gifted, that they have these 13 traits. And I advise that all of us read these 13 traits. Number 60, chapter 60, the 8 forms of wealth. This one I had to really read and reread and reread. Normally at the beginning of the year, there are certain things in our wheel. There's a goal setting wheel that Primera usually shares with us. And amazingly, that the 8 forms of wealth correlate with the goals inside that wheel. Goal number 1, self-mastery. What are you doing today to optimize the things that you already know? Your mindset. Are you reading enough books? Did you read 2 books last year and this year your target is to read 20? How far are you? Your heart set. Are you doing enough of those things? Letting go of grievances, forgiving more, doing exercises to keep your heart in good health. You have to optimize your health. Where are you? Physical fitness plus equals longevity. So number 1 form of wealth is self-mastery. Number 2, health. If you want to outlive your peers, you must check this aspect of health, because the longer you live, the higher your chances of living the life that you once aspired to live. Number 3, the 3rd form of health, family and friendships. Spend enough time with these people, your family and your friends. Spend enough time with them. Spend enough time with the people you love. Give them your time. We have 24 hours in a day. If you schedule your day very well, you can actually give them a bit of your time. Number 4 is craft and career. Maximize your craft. By craft is, what do you do? Are you perfecting it? Are you going for certain trainings to improve the way you work every day? Because this will amplify your career. In the end, you get more money. Prosperity. And this is money and your networks. People always say your network is almost equal to your network is your net worth. And every time you make more money, you increase your expenses. And if every time you make more money, you increase your expenses, you will never build your net worth. And ladies on the call, I want to tell you, and I want to emphasize that money is not evil. We live in a culture where I think somewhere in our past, we were told that too much money is a bad thing. Too much money is not a bad thing. It will give you freedom to do the things you want to do, to help the people you want to help. How nice it is to be able to help. Every time someone wants your help, you're willing and you're able to, without holding back, because you have the resources. So please, ladies, money is not evil. Mentors. We need mentors in our inner circles to build us up. Let us learn from what people learned so many years, for over so many years. We can learn that now and also help others in the end to get better, to get ahead of the curve faster than we all did. It is good to have mentors. Have adventure. That's another form of wealth, adventure. What are those things that really set your heart on fire? You want to do them. Is it traveling? This week, we actually, a friend of mine called Bena asked me, but Kathy, how many countries have you been to? I feel like one of these days, really, I need to take myself on a trip to see certain places. And I was like, by the way, let me write down. To write down, I was shocked. I've only been to 8 countries. And then she wrote down she had been to 13. Now, for me, my 8 countries included the transit airports. For her, it was actually solid 13. And to look on my list, I've never even been outside East Africa. I've only been to Uganda. That is very, very shocking. So adventure. If you have the money, if you plan well, you can actually go on so many adventures. Impact and contribution is also a form of wealth. Every time Patricia asks for mentors, every time a call goes out for us to join cohorts to help out in Girls for Girls, that is a form of wealth. If you sign up, it is a form of wealth, because giving back to society has amazing benefits for not just you, but for everyone. It has amazing benefits. Just imagine if we have leaders who actually have the courage to oppose injustices. Just imagine a world where everyone, every single girl goes to school. Impact is very important. It not only helps you, but the people around us. So I also advise that we all go back to chapter 60 and keep revising those 8 forms of wealth. Chapter 61, the algorithm for a beautifully balanced life. I'm only going to talk about the 3 things in brief. Always remember that the things you schedule get done. We advise that everyone gets a journal. Girls for Girls has an amazing journal. If you need one, we'll give you the contacts. Have things written down and you tick them off one by one because they're being written down. The mind has a crazy way of convincing us that we shall remember. We never remember. Life is so busy. You get carried away in a second and you forget what you're supposed to do that day. So let us remember to schedule things, and the best way, writing them down in a journal. Vague goal plans produce vague goals. And that is why we have that goal setting session at the beginning of the year and in the middle, so that we actually sharply articulate the things we want to achieve. When they are sharply articulated, it is easier for us. The SMART goals are easier to achieve. Remember to check out the weekly design system in that chapter. It will help you kind of remember the things that are supposed to help you in your journey of a beautifully balanced life. But always remember that time flies by. Time flies by. Weeks soon become quarters, quarters become years, years become decades. So it is time we actually get working on this beautifully balanced life. Chapter 62, the just because code for everyday heroes. And I'll just give one of the examples he states. So just because someone called you, good, and as you're growing up as a teenager, Just because someone said you would not do it doesn't mean you won't do it. Just because someone says you're old does not mean you will not be able to achieve your goals. So it's a very good chapter to really think about. It puts a lot of things into perspective. There are those fears that were put into us as children. Maybe a teacher said that you never do math. Just because they said you never do math does not mean that you cannot do the math. So read it and also supplement it with the things you should do before 40. If you're not 40, and also those who are already above 40, it's a good reminder of the things that we need to work towards. That's just a hotel room upgrade. So here he demystifies the fear that all humans have. All humans have the fear of death. He says it's just an upgrade. After here, you just sublime into infinity. How nice that is, a place of epic bliss. So we should not fear death. Chapter 64, why Aristotle slept on the floor. Do not be so comfortable, because when you're so comfortable, chances are high you will not rise to the next level. Girls for Girls, we have that statement. Be comfortable with being uncomfortable. Be comfortable with being uncomfortable. So that is just what the chapter is about. Avoid being consumed with protecting success. The stories he tells there. If you are consumed with the success you have now, chances are high you will fail to keep growing. But let us get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Is it a place that you've stayed in for so long, and you know it's time to move? That discomfort is okay. It's time to actually move. Let us be comfortable with being uncomfortable, because we grow to the next level. Chapter 65, shatter your winning formula like Miles Davis. Explore fresh frontiers. Yes, you've achieved this thing. You are now top on the list of so many things, innovation. But a few years later, no one knows you. People will be asking, who is this Catherine Mulumba? What did she do? Because time passes so fast. People are doing all sorts of amazing things. Every time you achieve that milestone, what is the next frontier you want to smash? Let us not get used to just stopping. Because you set a target, that is where it ends. The moment you achieve it, that is where it ends. Chapter 66, the anti-fragile artist in the shiny purple suit. He talks about a world famous musician who was dying, that his last concert showed a lot of resilience. He decided that the sickness was not going to let him let down his fans. He gave them the best show of his life. So grow stronger. At every turn in your life, grow stronger. Do not give in. Grow stronger at every turn in your life. Chapter 67, the keep your fire blazing theory for a lifetime of audacity. Regularly reach out to the impossible. That is what audacity is about. Every single day you wake up, there are so many things that will tell you to stay in bed. And for me, our purpose, I used to have an issue with Mondays. Mondays growing up, that is, I would be the last one to get out of the bed. And my mom would always complain. My young siblings would be ready before I would be on Mondays. So I purpose that on Monday, I'll be pumped up. And that is why it's my sole purpose to energize people on Monday mornings. So do not let the fire out. For you, it may not be Mondays. It may be media fatigue. But do not let the fire burn out. Reach out for the impossible. Yes, the days have passed, years have passed, there's something you've been sitting on. Do not let that fire out. Is it something you're pursuing, but the fuel crisis is crazy? Do not let the fire out. Keep reaching out for the impossibles. Smash those Monday mornings with a gust of energy every single time they show up. Chapter 68, how heavy weights work. It's about learning to regenerate, refuel, replenish, renew. Working most of the time will leave you exhausted. And so he's emphasizing that you take off time to actually sleep. There are people who sleep 12 hours and they're achieving amazing things. And then just the thought of 12 hours, you're wondering, by that time I should have better. No, but if you schedule your work and you purpose to sleep enough, you purpose to schedule and stick to the schedule, I tell you the rewards of renewing yourself or replenishing are amazing. You will live longer, your health will be better, and you'll generally be a happy person. Look at the people who don't sleep enough. They're usually grumpy, grouchy, always tired. So get those hours of sleep or rest. It may not necessarily be sleep, but rest. So that when you're at your desk working, you give it your 100%, knowing that, you know what, after I finish this, I'm going to rest. I'm going to catch a movie. I'm going to the spa. I'm going to sleep. I'm going to take a nap. So that should be how life is. Always replenishing ourselves. Chapter 69. The little things are the big things. Isn't it amazing? The story that was told in the previous chapters about how Robin asked a guy for his baseball cape, and the guy gave it to him, and Robin gave him a book. How nice that must have felt. It's the little things that have outsized consequences. He gives a story of a mosquito. You cannot sleep when that animal is disturbing you, or if it penetrates through the net, just buzzes and just causes a lot of disorganization. You will not be able to sleep. And so even those improvements are small improvements. If you have this plan of losing weight, you cannot just start off by running 20 kilometers. How about you start with 1 kilometer, 2 kilometers? That continuous improvement, it may seem very, very small, insignificant, but it's adding up to so much. Reducing the amount of sugar you take. No, you've been taking 3 spoons, you start by taking 2.7, then 2.5, 2, you even get used, you're like, oh, okay, I can actually even do 1 teaspoon of sugar. The results are amazing. So the small things make up a big difference. Chapter 70, become a creative athlete. Get so super fit so that you push the best energy out into the world. Super fitness. I think Claire and I need to actually start some routines. Claire, hi. I think we should start some routines because this chapter 70 was really talking about myself. Get super fit. Because when you're fit, you can do amazing things. Sleep well, you're able to walk without being cranky, you're alert 100%, you can do things for your children without feeling any aches and pains. You're generally a person who is on the move, full of energy all the time. So let's all purpose to get super fit. Chapter 71, how super producers do it. Reorder your self-identity to transform your capacity. What is it that you want to achieve? What are those things that you see in yourself that need some tweaking around? Is it that you want to be the best motivational speaker, but you fear crowds? You want to write the best-selling book, but you have not even started one page. So he's telling us that your perception of your capacity actively creates your reality. How do you see yourself? And this also plays into the visualization. What do you see? What do you see really? Because if you think you're lame, you're most likely going to be lame in whatever you do. If you think you cannot, you will not. So change your perception of yourself and you will see amazing results in reality. Upgrade your self-identity. And he gives us some 5 methods, some 5 tricks that you can use. How about you train your mind to think well about yourself? Your emotions, are you dealing with them? So that when they are closed, that chapter is done and you feel it's time to move on. Your words, what do you say to yourself? Fat and ugly as opposed to beautifully and wonderfully created, because beautifully and wonderfully created will become your reality. What do you do? What are you doing? Are you injecting yourself with very toxic stuff? Are you on drugs? Are you drinking a lot of alcohol? What are you doing to yourself? Watch out. What are your influences? If social media leaves you drained and feeling bad about yourself, cut it out. Cut it out. Are you following people who leave you feeling lesser than? Unfollow them, because it all becomes your reality. Chapter 72, escape post-moonwalk astronaut affliction. This normally happens to, unfortunately, to many people who set goals, and once the goal is achieved, they are left a bit in that state of now, what next? Okay, I was working towards this thing, I feel exhausted, tired, what's next? Never ever settle. What does that mean? And that is why we have yearly goal setting sessions. We would have stopped in 2020, but no, we haven't, because once you achieve the 2020 goals, guess what? 2021 is here. New goals are being set. Never ever settle. Never ever settle. Keep striving to better levels, and that is where you avoid this syndrome. It's unfortunate that we have people who set goals, and once they are done, you ask about famous people and you're like, what happened after they put, after that actor, was the best, rewarded the best Grammy? What happened? What the best Oscar? What happened? Oh, this Billboard artist, after they got the Grammy, what happened to them? They get into this trap. But always set fresh. Once you've achieved, set another one, an even more challenging one. That is why we have these goal setting sessions, because you will achieve. Like if you follow the different tips and nuggets that are given, most likely you're going to achieve your year's goals. But don't ever settle. Next year is even better and bigger and bolder. Chapter 73. Resilience lessons from the human who lost his face. When I read this story, I just could not imagine. I just could not imagine. The second that guy was in a furnace, and yet he was still alive, the pain. I just could not imagine. But what do we learn from this story? We are absolutely stronger than we think. Many of the things that we think will kill us cannot even come close to killing us. We are stronger than we think. But there's a condition to that. Own your thoughts. This guy was almost pronounced dead in hospital. But in his mind, he was still so much alive. And he knew he had to get onto that racetrack the moment he was out of there. And because the brain is now receiving these messages of, oh, I have a thing, I have a plan, there's something I need to do. He woke up. And after I think about 40 days, he went back into the car. And so number 2 is get back into the car. First, do not stay at that mountain for so long. The moment you're out and you feel energized and ready to move. Do not stay there for a long time, because what happens? Oh, human nature. You're like, but it happened to me before. I think this time it will kill me. I don't think I can make it. Look at me, my face. What can I do? Let me just stay here. No, he's telling us, get back into the car very fast. Number 3, never stop accelerating. Yes, there's a setback. You've moved. You've come out of the setback. You're now back on the racetrack. Accelerate. What did this guy do with his ruined face? He went on to write books. He went on to be something better. He changed his life completely 360 degrees from the racetrack driver. And so we need to accelerate. We need to continue on that move. Chapter 74, as I wind up, Charles Darwin and the extreme agility advantage. Everyone knows Charles Darwin, at least if you've gone through, I think, S1 history. And he says that nature will select out those who fail to be nimble, curious, hardworking, resourceful, and masterful. That is a reality. Technology changes so fast, and I've seen it in workplaces. For the person who stuck to the typewriter and never learned how to use the keyboard, they're most likely aged out in workplaces. It was a unique skill, and the people who knew it were really sought after. And then lo and behold, the keyboard comes, the personal computer comes. If you are not agile and are not adaptable to change, you're going to be aged out by nature. That is the rule of nature. So do not resist opportunities of growth. Is there something that you see that is coming? Can you learn it? Can you be curious enough? Can you be adventurous enough to try it out? Because nature is just like that. It will select out those who do not adopt. Thank you very much, ladies on the call. Over to you, Claire.
Thank you, Kathy. Thank you so much for that presentation. I have, this is my notebook. I read the book, but I still scribble around when they're sharing. So I hope you have all your notes. She's talked about gratitude, trusting the process. You need to be a problem solver. She talks about visualizing and the fact that time is running out and the fact that we need to move with the times. So Kathy, thank you. Thank you for sharing those great lessons and key takeaways. So we're going to go to the last part of this review. We have just a few minutes. So for me, I'm just going to really summarize the last chapters of the book. Request Primera to share the slides. Primera, kindly share the slides from slide 75.
Just give me a second.
Okay, so this last part talks a lot about the meaning of life. It talks about the meaning of life. It talks about the things that are important in our lives. And the first one, 75, majority of our life is really defined by like our work, the things that bring food to our table. And it's he gives the free money model for the advanced prosperity. So in this chapter, he talks about the two mindsets that we have, that we should hold for our finances. One is, of course, I just wanted to show one. I had scribbled my own notes, so. Primera, the last slides. Thank you. So he talks about two models, and I want to share something from my son. My last born, he's called Andrew. Andrew has been saving using these tins for many years. He saves coins from keeping his room neat, from doing house chores. But this year, he told me, we usually get clear tins and then we super glue the lid and then we have that hole there. So he puts the coins here where he can see them. But this year he said, Mommy, don't give me silver coins. I think I need to graduate to gold coins. Now, the coins in here are 500, 500 shillings and 1,000. But every single time you ask, he wants something. He recently said he wants a video game, but he said, Mommy, don't mind, I'll buy it using my coins. He wants a new Lego set. Mommy, don't worry, I'll buy it using my money in the jar. And he has a different, I encourage it because it has taught him to work for the things that he wants. And Primera, you can move to the next slide. So in this, maybe I'll use my phone. He gives two versions. There's one that has scarcity, and then the scarcity universe, and then the prosperity galaxy. Now, my son lives in the prosperity galaxy. When he looks at his jar of gold coins, he calls them gold coins, he sees limitless possibility with the coins that he has. So the scarcity universe is when you're always hoarding the little things, every little thing you have, you're always hoarding stuff because you don't want to give it away. You are surviving, just living day by day. How do I get through this month? How do I, if I get this pay, how do I, make it, stretch it to the end of the month? So you're always just getting by, getting enough to survive. Then you're always competing with the people in your space, competing with the people at work, competing with your friends, competing with people on social media, and you're always taking. You believe in taking. At work, you always want to see opportunities on how to, get money. That is the scarcity universe. So now in this book, they're saying you need to move to the prosperity galaxy. In the prosperity galaxy, it's giving, appreciation, and impact. We have grown up with a culture of receiving and not giving. This week, I received a guest. She stayed home. She stayed here for around 3 days. She's an American, and she only had a backpack. So I asked her, where are your clothes? You're going to be here for 2 weeks. And she said, no. Every season, I give away all my clothes and start afresh. And I was in shock because I was actually thinking I need a bigger wardrobe to accommodate all my clothes. But she said for her, every season, all she needs is clothes for that season. And I was amazed by the kind of attitude that she has, that every time she's going into a season, she has to give away her clothes. And so that's a giving mentality. And Robin encourages us to have the giving mentality. Then 76, put down your phone and talk to a person. We live in a culture of, phone, always texting, TikTok. Our faces are always on the phone. Even when people go out, when you go to a restaurant and you look around, you find that there are couples who have gone out, but everyone is on the phone. There are friends who have come to hang out together and they are still on the phone. So he says for us to have a balanced life, we are missing chances. He gives many examples, which I may not go into right now. He gives examples of when he had gone out for coffee, he saw someone sitting outside. He looked like a poor guy in a checked shirt. When he went to chat with him, he actually realized he was a wealthy man who just enjoyed being out and, he was just having a quiet time with himself. So get a chance to speak to someone else. Do not always be involved in your phone. And then 77, it's the shortest chapter in the history of productivity. Now, that chapter actually had one sentence, one sentence. It's dream big, start small, act now. Dream big, start small, act now. We have we've been having a number of books that are encouraging us to dream big. Last year, we actually had, we read a book, that yellow book. It had Dream Big by Bob Goff. And it encourages us to, dream big, and we don't worry where the capital is going to come from. Usually our dreams die at that point. We say, I can't dream big, I can't start this business, I can't do that because of my inability to finance these projects. Not everything needs money, so go out, start small, but actually act now. 78, it talks about business is a beautiful war. Now, business is a beautiful war was quite interesting, because a number of ventures that have thrown out because, you don't get paid, you get frustrated down the road. I remember I used to sell cupcakes for my young sister in office, and I used to leave the container in the canteen, but every end of day I used to use my own money to actually to pay my sister. Why? Because people used to take the cupcakes and not pay the money. And it was frustrating. Very, very good idea, because the cupcakes got sold by 10, the cupcakes are finished. But then you find that people would always take them, then you don't know what's taken, you're not sure, and the lady could not reconcile. So in this chapter, it talks about, even when you're in business, you need to be very, very careful with the business partners. The people will always let you down. So just like in war, it is only the heroes, the generals, who are celebrated. So business is a beautiful war. And 79, be serious when you're serious. Here, one of the people on social media commented that Robin he never smiled, he looks very serious. He takes life so seriously. Now, he responded and said, I'm serious when I'm serious. So sometimes at our workplaces, we do not take work seriously. You show up, switch on your computer, and the next thing, it's Netflix, it's Facebook, it's chatting, and all these other things. When you are playing, play. But when you are serious with work, you need to be serious with work. When you show up to work, do you give 110% to the job that is at hand? So we need to take things seriously, and that's how we can progress. He, of course, gives examples of himself and the things that he does, like isolating himself when he's writing a book, staying away for weeks when he's writing a book, because he knows he's working on a bestseller. And so he has to be fully invested in that bestseller. You cannot write a bestseller while you're on social media, you're laughing at TikTok. There's no way you're going to create a bestseller. Then 80, the four major communication practices of movement makers. Now, he in this chapter, he talks about the fact that whether you like it or not, you're communicating. You're communicating somehow. You communicate to your spouses, you communicate to your colleagues, you're communicating every single time. And so he gives a formula of how we should communicate. And one of the key things that he highlights in this communication is listening. We need to become active listeners. Many times, even in meetings, sometimes I go into meetings, especially in sales, you go for a pitch and you've prepared a pitch, but most of the time I prefer to listen to what the client says, and I reconstruct my pitch or my talking points according to what the client has said. So some issues of listening actively, some of the things that he mentioned in terms of communicating. So we need to become good communicators. And I think it's one of the modules that we have in Girls for Girls. So for me, it's in the book club. Taking, going through these reviews every month has helped me a lot. I've learned to communicate better. I no longer sweat in all areas when I'm going for a pitch. I find it comes like now second nature for me to, even if they ask a question and I don't know the answer, I've learned to communicate and be able to deliver to the people I'm speaking to. And 81, Primera, I'm moving faster than you, I think. 81, that time I learned to surrender. Now, I use the image of a shopping cart with a house. Now, he talks about staying in a house for the house that he stays in. He has had that house for a long time. And the reason as to why he stays in that house, even when he became a best celebrity, author, he has sold many books, he can afford mansions. He says that this house has actually become a home. Like Kathy said, many times when our revenue changes, we are forced to change the way we live. But he has decided to stay in the same house because of the solitude and silence it brings. When he's in that house, he's able to feel that the most important things, family, are all in that house. And he has learned to surrender to the silence and solitude of that simple house. And you find that in most of his books, he really shares about simplicity of living. Then 82, chapter 82 talks about you never know who is standing in front of you. Many times when we are going through life, for example, if you're in a supermarket, you don't know the person who is in front of you, you don't know the person who is, behind you. But he talks about the many opportunities that we miss because we are not courteous to the people who are standing in front of us. Sometimes we are pushing people, you're in the bank and you're rude, you don't know who that person is. And in his experience, he says he has interacted with celebrities, with well-known people who have opened doors for him because he has been courteous, he has been polite when waiting in the queue for his chance. Then 83, chapter 83 is about the index for the GCA index for A-lister performance. These are small, Kathy talked about the traits of billionaires. There are also key things that A-lister performance people use. For example, always be early, it's always better to be early. He talks about the different celebrities he has met. Even when they're celebrities, they always show up much earlier than 30 minutes to the restaurant or to the place of appointment, and he finds them reading a book. Yet it's supposed to be reversed. He's the one supposed to be waiting. But he finds that even when he tries to go early, they were there much earlier. And then there is clear out diversions. We have so many diversions, so much clutter in the things that we do, so much clutter in the spaces we live in. If you're to be an A-lister, we need to clear out the diversions. The things that no longer serve you, you don't need to carry them along. You don't need to be in 1,000 WhatsApp groups. You don't need to comment every single time. These are some of the things that cause diversion, and you find that the things that are meant to be done are not done because of the diversions. Then the last one, there are many, but come to play. Come to play is a term that he uses a lot when referring to your workspace. When you come to the pitch, play. Do not be a spectator. Many times we are spectators in our workplaces. We allow other people to score, and yet we are on the pitch. So when you come to work, show up and give 110% of yourself to the assignment at hand. Then I'll move on to 84. 84 was, I think, one of my favorites that I'll take away from this book. 84, chapter 84 talks about Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs' last 6 words. When Steve Jobs was about to pass away, he was surrounded by family. He had been sick for, I think he had pancreatic cancer or something like that. So he was really sick, and he was surrounded by his family. So at this last moment, when his family was next to him, these are words that are shared by the sister, he looked beyond them and said, "Oh, wow, oh, wow, oh, wow," and then he passed away. Now, these words have been like really documented. Books have been written about the last 6 words, "Oh, wow, oh, wow, oh, wow." And people wonder, what did Steve Jobs see, at that last moment? What did he envision when he was about to pass away? Did he see things that we assume do not exist? Did he see another world? Did he see the light? So whatever he saw, that is the journey that Kathy was talking about. Beyond this, what lies ahead? It's what we need to be focusing on. That's what we need to be focusing on beyond the now. What about, the afterlife? Oh, wow, oh, wow, oh, wow. What can make you say something like that? So that is the kind of question that he gave us. Think about what Steve Jobs saw in that moment. 85, when things seem hard, trust your strength. Sometimes you're on this call and you have such a heavy load on your shoulders, and you're like, I've had difficulties, but this one is going to be the death of me. This one is going to, finish me off. Like the previous panelist said, you should be resilient. Whatever you're going through will not be the end of you. Kathy talked about trust the process. Life has your back. Yeah, trust the process. Life has your back. So whatever you're going through, you're stronger than this. You're stronger than this. Sometimes I look at my own life and I look back and I'm like, my God, how did I make it this far? How did I, when I look at my teenage children right now, they're teenagers, but when they were prematures, 1 kilogram, I said, God, I don't have strength. How can I take care of this child? No, they're teenagers. Where did all that strength come from? That strength was already there. That strength was already there and kept pushing me not to give up. And 86, you cannot inspire if you are de-inspired, So in that chart, he talks about the different ways he inspires himself. He refuels, he has a circle there, and he talks about, in order for him to have growth, he he reads books, he meditates a lot, he attends a seminar per quarter. That is how he grows in his knowledge. Then fitness, he runs 4K week, he stretches every day, he takes nature walks. This chart is in the book. And so when you go back, you can read the details of how he refuels. In Girls for Girls, say you cannot pour from an empty cup. So if you're to inspire someone else, you need to be able to inspire yourself. And one of the things that we have done that is through reading. Now, because of all the books that we have read, when I am called for a speaking engagement, I don't panic about what I'll say, because I've got so much content, even in the subconscious. I don't even need to read when I'm presenting, because all these things I've received them from the different books. Some of the books that I just brought them here so you can see some of the books. Like there's this Dale, I think it's Dale Carnegie. It's a scrapbook of his quotes. Now, these are small quotes that I just read when I'm going for a speaking engagement, and they remind me about just small life lessons that he put down in a scrapbook that he gave to his wife before he passed away, and she created this book, some of the best quotes by Dale Carnegie. And then there is another one of C.S. Lewis. I don't know whether you know C.S. Lewis. Many of the people talk about his book, Mere Christianity. He has this just quotes by C.S. Lewis. So when you read, you don't have to read books, big books every day. Even books that are just quotes have a lot of wisdom. Now, one of those books is the book that we are reviewing right now. You don't have to reread the entire book. There are chapters that, like the previous panelists talked about, those chapters can help you remember a number of things. And so in order for you to inspire, you need to refill yourself. Then 87 talks about the 6 months left to live question. If you had 6 months to live, what would you do? What would you do if you're genuine enough? What are those things you do if they told you, if a doctor said, you know what, Claire, I think you have 6 months to live. Now, the things that you write down, those are the things you're supposed to be doing now. Like Kathy said, that days turn into weeks, weeks turn into months, months turn into years. Why are you writing down that I will travel when you have 6 months to live? Travel now. If that you want to write a book, you want to do, to travel the world, you want to lecture somewhere, there are many things that we all want to do. If you want to do them now. Do not wait for the 6 months question. 88 talks about fame and fortune for a line on the tombstone. Many of us have actually settled for that fame and fortune just for a line on the tombstone. What does he mean? He talks about many people who have sacrificed their families, their lives for a title of doctor. You know, you want to be called doctor this, at the cost of your family. Just because you want that title, he was great on a tombstone. You have sacrificed your life so that you get that title on a tombstone. When I was reading that chapter, I was reminded about the book When Breath Becomes Air. I read it, I think 2019, and I shared this book with the medical school, the medical cohort. I was a guest speaker there, and I had just read that book, When Breath Becomes Air. It was written by Paul, and Paul was a surgeon, I think a medical surgeon, and he found out that he had stage 4 cancer and he was going to die. So he documented his last life. And that book has gone on to become a worldwide bestseller. I encourage all of you to look out for it. I saw it in Aristoc. I don't know whether it's still there. Go out and read it, because it talks about the important things in life. He eventually passed away, leaving a wife and a daughter, but he wasn't even, I think, 50. He was young, but when you read it, you get to understand the most important things. He had sacrificed his entire life to the medical field, and even all the knowledge he had attained could not save him. So I encourage you to read that book so that you get a good perspective. Then 89, Winnie talked about 89, resist the Titan's decline. Here, I will not go into the details. I'll just let you know that the only way to avoid that decline is to actually learn humility. humility, because unless you're humble, you cannot succeed in life. Sometimes the bosses that we have, the bosses that we become, we are good when we are middle managers, but when you're elevated, yeah, you become something else. You start tormenting all the women in your department. You start, doing all these things. And in his book, he says that you stay up there for a short while. This week, we of course experienced Boris Johnson, resigning from his job. These are top jobs. In his speeches, he actually said it's one of the best. He'd say the best job in the world. But you get out there and you think it's forever. Even when he stayed, people said we would rather lose our jobs on the cabinet than have you as a leader. And he was brought down in just one day. So in order to avoid that, there needs to be humility. And then 90 is the necessity of artistic and popularity. Many times we want to flow with the tide. Wherever everyone else is going, whatever they are doing, whatever they are saying, it is okay, we go with the flow. In our jobs, we flow with the corruption, we flow with the status quo and the culture that is there. If the culture is belittling our workmen, we flow with the belittling of workmen. In this chapter, he talks about the necessity of artistic and popularity. Be the one who stands out for what is right. He gives an example of a musician who was a celebrity. Yeah, a celebrity. She was, big at the music, big concert. So she uses a big concert to actually say, you know what, you need to stop injustice, mistreating children. And she was good and her career went down. That was she stopped, singing. So there are many people, even during our times, like the tennis player who refused to take interviews because of bullying, and all these other things that people are doing, not allowing racism. We need to adopt that sometimes you need to stand out for what is right, even if it's going to cost you your popularity or your job. 91. I want to speak really about 91, the troll deconstruction. The troll deconstruction. Primera, kindly move the slides because that one has a chart. Yeah, thank you. The troll deconstruction. Trolling is something that really, really, really is eating up our culture, even with our children. On social media, the comments that people give, the body shaming, the things that they say and troll on social media has really destroyed people's emotions. This week in Japan, I don't know whether you know Hana Kimura she was a celebrity actress in Japan, very, very, very popular. But a few men kept shaming her, trolling her, always, pouring insults at her, and she ended up committing suicide. This week, Japan passed a law that whoever trolls anyone on social media will spend 1 year in jail. That's how serious it is. Now, deconstructing, here Robin Sharma gives a few highlights that whoever is insulting you, they have an issue. One, haters are love teachers in disguise. Beneath attack is pain. The people who are attacking you have their own pain. Number 3, light attracts moth as well as angels. So some of the people attack you because you're better than them. You're actually better than them. You're doing things that they could never do. Number 4, people in a great place don't tear others down. So whoever is tearing you down has something they're hiding. They are beneath you. Then haters are damaged dreamers. You know, people see you living your dreams and achieving all these things, and they became haters. Why? Because you are reaching out for your own dreams and they failed to reach, to fulfill their own, dreams. So they're damaged dreamers. Powerful work generates extreme reactions. So when you're doing something different, something that that exposes maybe the rot in society and all that, if you're radical about the things that you speak up about, you're going to get trolled. So he goes on to, to give different things that deconstruct trolling. So as people in this book club and Project Girls for Girls, be mindful. Be mindful about the comments that you give, even if it's not in our circles, but in other circles. Be mindful about how you comment. Then 92, that time I met Muhammad Ali. This was an interesting story. It was about, they had gone for a holiday and Muhammad Ali was in his open car and open roof. So he saw him and said, I think that is Muhammad Ali. So when the mother had it, just say, take a U-turn, let's go and check him out. So they were totally embarrassed. They could not believe. The mom insisted. They followed him. When they went side to side, they asked for a photo opportunity. Muhammad Ali that time was such a big name, but he parked his car and took multiple photos with this family. The reason as to why Robin includes that story, he says, it showed humility in spite of success. We need to be able to stop. Some of us are nowhere. We are nobodies. But the arrogance that we walk around with, we don't greet, we don't do what, as in we are so powerful. So this example, Muhammad Ali stopping and taking photos with the family was really, really humbling for him. And he goes on to share the same example with I think that was in 93, he talks about his book, Who Will Cry When You Die. Don't worry about your legacy. He says years later, he regrets having written that title, Who Will Cry When You Die, because it shows that you need to, put a lot of thought on what other people think. But what the content of that book was quite different, because I read that book and it was a very, very well-written book, because it shows, it encourages you to be mindful about the now, the things that you do now. What is your impact? What is your impact? And that is what he was bringing out there. Don't worry about your legacy. Many times you write, I want to leave all this property for my children. I want to leave all this. I want to make a name. But where are you going? If you've achieved the whole world, I think it's in the Bible, what does a man profiteth if he achieves the whole world and loses his soul? So we need to be very mindful about our afterlife. And then the second one, the 94, a hero named Desmond Tutu. Desmond Tutu passed away last year. Yeah, I think last year. And when I was watching his, the DSTV created a channel for a whole month just talking about Desmond Tutu and the things that he had done for the people in South Africa and the whole world. And one of the things that they highlight about his life was his humanity. He did not differentiate whether you were Muslim, Buddhist, or Hindu. He just asked people to be human, go back to humanity. And in this book, he refers to him as one of his heroes because of the life that he led. So we need to go back to being humans. We need to love and to be compassionate, just like Desmond Tutu. And then 95, the life of people. Okay, the life regrets of people on their deathbed. Now, this was very interesting because he gave an example that he wrote in that previous book. He gave an example of two patients who were divided by a curtain, the hospital curtains, like the ones in Mulago. And one of the patients on the other side of the curtain used to always describe how beautiful outside looked. The sunset, sunrise, flowers, bees. He used to, and the patient on the other curtain became jealous. He was like, he gets to see, he's arrogant. He gets to see all this beautiful scenery. He's already showing off, describing it for me. He knows I can't see it. This guy that passed away, when he passed away, the guy who was describing the scenery, when he passed away, this other patient who was very bitter, very bitter, he was supposed to have asked for help. But because of his bitterness, he never called the nurses, and this guy died. So when he died, he said, I want to shift my bed to the window. When they removed the dividing curtain, it was a wall. The stories this patient was describing for his friend were from his imagination, because he believed that if he can tell him all these beautiful things from the imagination, it would lift up his spirit. It was just a wall. The story, the meaning behind this story is the things that people regret on their deathbed are the same. It doesn't matter which country they come from. And he goes on to list that those different things that people regret. One of the things is not having loved enough. They wish they had loved enough. They wish they had not wasted a lot of time. They wish they had enjoyed the pilgrim of life. They wished they did not worry too much, spend time with their family. He lists all the things that people regret before they die. Then in 1996, the good we do, think that people do not notice the things we do, but they actually last a lifetime. We we always think that for me to make someone happy, I have to spend money buying a gift. Sometimes it's in the small things. It's in that text in the morning. It's in that phone call once in a while. It's in that, encouraging message that you share, that you can make someone happy. So the good you do, will last forever in people's hearts, even if you are not celebrated right now. So we need to do good. As I conclude, 97, this is where our happiness coach comes in, Kathy. Be happy to see live people. He talks about one of his speaking engagements. There was a seminar. There was a guy who was always happy, always smiling, always beaming. And after the seminar, he asked him, why are you always happy? And the guy said, I have seen too many dead people. It's a good thing to see live people. So you can imagine when seeing people, normal people, being alive brings a smile to someone's face. So we go on in life grumpy and, sad, but our attitude should be gratitude. Are you grateful to be on this call? Are you grateful to see Winnie or to see Kathy? Are you grateful just to wake up and your children are smiling and making noise and running around? The simple things in life should be able to bring us joy. And it talks about, there's a quote there, it takes so little to make a child happy that it is a pity in a world full of sunshine and pleasant things that there should be any wistful faces, empty hands, and lonely little hearts. So we need to be happy. Then 98 talks about the verses of everyday hero who cannot be defeated. We need to we need to believe in ourselves. We need to celebrate who we are. We need to live our truth. Actually, that's what he says in that chapter. Live your truth. Do not live under the shadow of what people expect of you. Celebrate you every day. Celebrate your achievements. If you have overcome loneliness or depression, if you've overcome negative thinking, celebrate that. Every single day, celebrate. 99, it talks about windows of opportunity and second chances. Here he shares about having seen a celebrity in a hotel lobby, and he knew the celebrity was such a big name. He was a Hollywood producer, and he wanted to say hi, but as he was walking there, in his mind, without even anyone saying anything, he said, he will never talk to you. He will never, why should he say hi to you? So he eventually never approached the guy. So he lost that opportunity. And then later, while he was on holiday, he met him. And this time he had to, to get the boldness to go and speak to him and have a photo opportunity with him. And so he was saying that there are many opportunities that are passing us by. I was telling my workmate yesterday. She said, Claire, every time you pick up the phone, you're like excited, as if you're expecting good news. And like, I wake up every day expecting good news, as in that's it. I lived for so many years, worrying about the phone call. What is she saying? Oh my God, that's mommy calling. Is she okay? Now I wake up in the morning and every phone call, I'm like, oh my God, what new gig do I have? What who is calling me? And you find that the phone calls are actually good, the bad phone calls are not coming through. So every single time, be optimistic, look at the opportunities. If you're called on to, to be a panelist in a book review, come on, show up, learn. As in, I remember the first reviews that we had, I was sweating. By the time we finished the review, my legs were numb. That's how I was panicking. But show up. Sometimes opportunity knocks once. So show up, be ready every single time. Even if they ask you, say a prayer before a meeting, say it. Stumble, but say it. Next time they'll. And then the second last is be not a dream postponer. Be not a dream postponer. We need to always do the things that we dream about now. You want that restaurant, go to YWCA, learn how to cook, as in do something, but do it now. If you want to go into landscaping, start with 2 potted plants, see if they survive your love, as in do something now. There's a course you want to do. Read books. I usually share about my career, how I changed from being a graphics designer into sales. And I was clueless. I knew nothing. But through reading books from the best salesmen in the world, I used to read books of real estate, how people can sell real estate, how people can sell, very expensive Ford cars and Benzes, how they can sell all that. Those are the books I read. And they were able to teach me some of the tips and crafts of how to be a salesperson. So whatever dream you have, start on it now and dream big. And the last one is really a philosophy for returning to human. Now, that was the last chapter, and he brings everything together. And he says, just love, be human, live in the present right now, live a life of gratitude, be grateful for everything big and small, count your blessings one by one. That is how you succeed in life. So it was a book of wisdom, 101 tips of wisdom. And you may have to rewatch this, you may have to go back and read some chapters that we have, run through, but it was a great book, and we encourage you to go read the book. There are books that are listed within that, recommendations that you should get. Go out and and read them. So I would like to thank everyone who has come for this book review. It has been long because it has been a long a big book, but we thank God for that, and for the many things that we have learned. You can't say that I've got 101 lessons. Just get one or two things that you can remember and be able to share. We are currently reading another book, The Power of Moments. If you've started reading it, read it. These authors, we began with these authors when we were opening the book club, and we decided that, this half year, new financial year, we are going to start with the same authors. That book is not as simple as this one because it's based on research. Dan and Chip always write their books from a place of research, and that's where the beauty is. Their book Switch was a good book because it was based on research. Now this book is also very good. Now 2 weeks ago, as I conclude, 2 weeks ago, I sent an email to Robin Sharma, and he was able to share one of his books, Success Manifesto, 200 Powerful Ideas of an Extraordinary Life. I would request Primera to share the soft copy of that book with all the people who have attended this book review. It's a beautiful summary of this book, but you'll see it. It's a great book. Read it. It's also just one-liner, and of 200 pointers of how to live a successful life. I hope you will enjoy it, and I encourage all of you to stay on with our book club, and we continue growing together. Now, we as a book club, we want to grow. We're already 500 members, and we want to grow, to reach out, to take this skill to another level, to impact other young girls. Like we say, we usually have like the things we've learned after 40. Now, our daughters, I have 2 teenage girls. I want them to learn to read at that age. And so we would want to start having outreaches in schools and creating small book clubs in different schools. And so starting the month of July, we are going to be requesting every member to pay 50,000 shillings, 50,000 shillings for a year membership, for a year, not a month. 50,000 shillings membership for 1 year, and the money will be used for that outreach, which you're going to be part of, to help us buy books and be able to pass this to the younger generation. So Primera will be able to share the link in the book club as we start our journey of taking these lessons and this beautiful book club to our children in our different communities and in schools. Thank you. Thank you, panelists, for the amazing work. Primera, any last words?
Thank you to everyone. I will be sure to send the book and the link for the recording to anyone who would want to watch it again. And I will definitely do